Hello, I'm the biochemist, and I am back, baby. I know it says I was going to do Spyro next, but long story short, lost my save data, got a new computer, got a new look. Now we're back with Jet Moto. We're going to talk a lot about this rockin' racing game and learn a bit more about one of its creators. Tell me below what Jet Moto memories you guys have. For me, it's my first time playing. We start where all games start though, of course, and that is the cover art. 20 seconds, let's go. We have some nice comic book art of racers that highlight the attitude packed into this game. The Jet Moto logo is sleek, a bit more laid back compared to the riders. Background is just a checkered flag, kind of feels like a placeholder to be honest. I would have preferred a whole comic book background of the race, but whatever, this works good. Cover is solid. So we've got ourselves another racing game, this time with futuristic jet skis. Jet Moto was made by Single Track Games, a studio that only lasted a few years but left a lasting imprint on the PS1 library. Before releasing Jet Moto in '96, they dropped Warhawk and Twisted Metal in 1995, according to Moby Games. In this world, we have a few sponsored teams like Axiom, K2, Butterfinger, and my personal choice, Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Each team has several racers, all with different backstories and stats. The profiles for each person are a nice touch, but they're just extra flavor ultimately. It's impossible to distinguish racers while actually in the game, unlike Singletrack's other big franchise, Twisted Metal, where the character models are distinct, which really helps convey useful information about your competition in-game. In the profiles, you can also see the continuity of Twisted Metal and Jet Moto's art styles. A nice little identity Singletrack was building up for itself. So we select a racer and hop into a circuit, trying our best for first place. Winning a full season unlocks more courses, standard racing game affair. Let me tell you, that is hard to do. Speaking of do, Team Mountain Dew had my heart at first, as I said, but one racer, the technician from Team Axiom, found glory. He ended up being my go-to, so you'll see mostly him in these clips. You can really feel the difference between racers in this game. Jet Moto has a solid handful of 10 levels that can get very hard. There are normal race tracks where you go around 3 laps or whatever, but there are also these tracks called suicide tracks, which are unique. I've never seen anything like it before. In these, you start in the middle of a track that is in essence a line. Everyone goes to one end of the line, turns around, then heads back to the opposite end of the line, where you turn around again and repeat till the race is over. What happens? Well, everyone spreads out inevitably, and you get racers driving headfirst into each other, colliding. These levels are even more intense than normal, injecting some variety that a lot of racing games sometimes lack. The worst level, one called Ice Crusher, you unlock after winning the first season. I hate this. There are pitfalls everywhere and the track is segmented, so you're skipping along at high speeds around these treacherous paths. The levels before this didn't have pits like we do here, so I just kept falling and dying and losing. Largely because falling off the map sets you so far back. Yeah, you'll find yourself wiping out plenty in every other track, something that happens frequently. Hit too much stuff in quick succession and you'll fall off the jet ski naturally. This adds to the fun of the game, however, because unlike falling off the track, you get back into the race very quickly after wiping out. It's punishing, yes, but you can still come in first after taking a few tumbles if you play well enough. Plus, it's always just funny to watch your guy fly off his ride, screaming and yelling. To prevent yourself from wiping out too much, you'll have to master braking, leaning, and balancing your jet. This may sound bizarre, but I think a decent modern comparison is Death Stranding. If you lean too far to the right or too far forward or something, you'll slow down and eventually fall. If you balance just right, you're going to be in for a good time. The other mechanics you're going to have to master are speed boosts, which are self-explanatory, and your magnetic grappling hook thing. Alright, so this is pretty unique. So all over each track, there are these beams that you can use as pivot points to make sharp turns with your grappling hook. Mastering this technique is essential in winning races because it allows you to retain your speed while making these sharp turns. All your skills are going to be tested in this game's version of Rainbow Road, which is the track Nightmare.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
You can see the footage here. It's about as tough as you expect. I was not very good at it. So the graphics are colorful, vibrant, and distinct from course to course, which really helps sell the action. A constant frame rate is essential for racing games, especially for the PS1, so I'm frankly really impressed by the consistency here, especially given the number of racers who compete in each race. A whopping 20. I don't think I've ever seen that many in a PS1 game before. Not all at once. The character models are all very similar, so that might help with the technical side of things. But yeah, we see some really smooth gameplay here. I really appreciate the little details too, like the sprites of water or sand getting kicked up beneath ski. There's one clever trick I found that I don't think I've ever seen before in PS1 games. So to help hide the draw distance and pop in at one spot, there was a tunnel that they had where they placed a static image of what's on the outside of the tunnel near the end of it. As you go through the tunnel and approach the image, it scales up, of course, then disappears when you're close enough to reveal the fully loaded segment of the track behind it. You can see what I'm talking about here. I'm not sure where else this technique has been used in the PS1, but I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for sure. This is an earlier game in the PS1's library, so I'm sure it was used at other points. It's this type of brilliant design around limitations that fuels my obsession with the system. The only negative I have in the graphics department is that later levels become very windy, which sometimes led to the camera lagging a bit behind, and your character not being centered on the screen anymore makes the gameplay a little harder. It wasn't that bad, it didn't really harm the gameplay too much, but I don't think it was intentional. Also, textures weren't, I guess, the best. The characters could have been a bit more detailed, but I'm sure they'll improve on that in new sequels. I've never played them, but we'll see, I guess. As for music, you get a sick surfer theme at the beginning. Which sets the tone for the music in this game. Some rockin' tracks that accompany your races, upping the ante and amping your adrenaline. The sound effects that are present are serviceable, I'd say. As I mentioned before, the screams of the flying racers really tie the whole experience together.
And now presenting a Wipeout Montage.
And now it's part of the video where we learn about one of the game's creators. Today we're highlighting Kirk Baum. Early into his career, Kirk found himself working for single-track games a few years after graduating college with a computer science degree. Not exactly unique, I'd say, for this series, but it gets the job done, and it certainly set himself up for success. Throughout the 90s, he worked as a senior software engineer on hardcore PS1 titles like this one, Twisted Metal, and Warhawk, single-track's big hits. The company ended up getting bought out and folding by the end of the millennia, but that was no problem for Kirk. He continued being a senior software engineer for Sony Computer Entertainment America, sticking to what he knew. Hardcore titles like Twisted Metal Black, War of the Monsters, and Warhawk 2007. By the mid-2000s though, he seemed to be a bit sick of all the doom and gloom, so he got a lead software engineer position with Disney Interactive Studios, where he worked on Disney Infinity and Toy Story 3, among other things. Now that is an underrated gem. Toy Story 3 on the PS3, I am not lying. Good game.
Pigs in space!
He now works for WB Games, with his latest project being the majorly successful Hogwarts Legacy. Good on you, Kirk. We look forward to seeing what you do next, and we look forward to seeing your other games here on the PS1 Library Deep Dive. As for us, we're going to check out Tekken next. Tekken 8 is big right now, so hey, why not? Comment down below about what games we should tackle next. We'll spin the wheel for it real soon. Promise there won't be a big hiatus next time. Thank you all for watching, and good night.